I wanted to share a little bit of my journey of how I came to Silicon Valley. I'm actually an East Coaster, spent 18 years in Washington, D.C., and I was always very entrepreneurial from a very young age. In fact, I sold my parents' home when I was in second grade. And I enjoyed ideas and expanding upon them. But in Washington, I was indoctrinated into this culture. Be careful on your way up, because you'll never know who you'll meet on your way down. And so, Washington had a good run with entrepreneurism. AOL was founded there. We had Dulles Corridor. But it didn't survive, not quite as we had hoped. But any time that I shared ideas with people on the East Coast, the favorite response would be, well, if it was such a good idea, somebody else would have done it. And so it squashed my enthusiasm in being able to want to participate in the entrepreneurial process. But one day my husband came home in 2006 and he says, we're moving to California. And I go, the hell we are? And he goes, the hell we are. Didn't have much choice in the matter. And I had to very quickly figure out, how am I going to take my background in national politics and media and make it fit into the land of Google and Intel? And I say Intel because this was June of 2006, when Intel was still up top. We don't talk about Intel much anymore in Silicon Valley. So we moved there, and all of a sudden, I went from this very cluttered atmosphere to open space. This is the Stanford dish. If anybody knows Stanford University right behind it, Stanford owns a tremendous amount of land that was strictly for the purposes of agriculture and making sure that people had open space so they could think creatively and be able to build on it. And so I moved to Silicon Valley, not knowing a soul, had to very quickly figure out what I was going to do for a living. I couldn't kind of sit around. And very quickly I discovered it was unlike any other place I'd ever been. I'd be standing in line at the Starbucks, the grocery store, the bank, and all of a sudden people would just start talking to me. California has a very friendly pace, but in Silicon Valley, people took a genuine interest in who you are and what you're doing and what you want to do and how do you think. And so the most common question I got was, how can I help you? And you think that's so insignificant. But when someone says, how can I help you, it leads to greatness. It leads to introductions. And so literally within weeks, I was sitting down with some of the biggest, most prominent, high-profile venture capitalist entrepreneurs. And so I quickly raised venture capital and built out 3 companies in 6 years off this one investment. But what I realized was, more importantly than anything else, is Silicon Valley had this unique ecosystem. And I'm not here today to spend a lot of time in Silicon Valley, but I do think it's really important. Sekou addressed building playgrounds within your organizations, but you also have to have that ecosystem outside of your organizations. And what I realized about Silicon Valley is, if you were working with a venture capitalist, if you were working with a lawyer, you just started to move around the ecosystem. The lawyer then picked up the phone and called the venture capitalist then picked up the phone and called the strategic partners, and it just kind of went all the way around. And of course, Stanford University is really the nucleus of what this ecosystem became. And I say, had it not been for Leland Stanford in the way he thought about building Stanford University, I don't think Silicon Valley would exist in the way that it is today.